So here I have all the latest cameras in all different categories. We have the Pocket 3, the X4, the Ace Pro, Action 4, GoPro 12, Go3, and the One RS 1-inch edition, and also the One RS Twin edition, and an iPhone. So which camera should you actually buy? And should you buy a camera at all if you have one of the latest iPhones? I also want to say that this video is not sponsored by any of these brands, so all opinions are my own. And hopefully by the end of this video, you'll have a better understanding of which of these cameras to get if you feel like you need one at all. But make sure to stick around until the end to find out which of these cameras I prefer and why, and if I could only choose one or two, which one would those be? Let's dive into the unsponsored, unfiltered truth about these cameras. Now, this video is also mainly to show you how I use these cameras in different scenarios, like traveling, vlogging, motovlogging, hiking, diving, free diving, snorkeling, and spending time with the kids, and so on. So I basically tried to capture every single aspect to give you a better decision based on your needs. I assume a lot of you are doing the same things as me, so yeah, that's basically the concept of this video. So let's start with image quality. Now, in my opinion, nothing beats the Pocket 3 when it comes to out-of-the-box image quality, even though the GoPro Hero 12 is pretty close and has a really crisp image. The Pocket 3 is just on a different level with the autofocus, D-Log-M 10-bit, 1-inch sensor, the cinematic features, and active track, and so much more. And I think all of this combined makes the footage look untouchable when it comes to the Pocket 3. And for someone that hates digital zooming, for example, you know, 2x zoom on this is just wow, and it's something I use at least 50% of the time when I use the Pocket 3. But with that said, the GoPro Hero 12 is not really far behind with its 8x7 sensor, 5.3K resolution, and 10-bit in all color profiles as well, just like the Pocket 3. But personally, I do like it more natural when it comes to the GoPro 12, so that's the profile I'm using 99% of the time. And compared to all other cameras, GoPro offers the Max Lens Mode 2, which is fantastic for motovlogging. However, this is an additional $99 that you have to spend, and it doesn't even allow you to shoot videos in 5.3K, which is a huge con, given the $100 you have to spend on this just to use 4K resolution and one lens type. What I mean about one lens type, well, it's the other two lens types looks pretty bad, so there's only one lens type that you can use. But I have a full video on this which explains how the Max Lens Mode 2 works, and with side-by-side shots of all the lens types with and without the Max Lens Mode 2. So if you want to learn more about this, check out the link down in the description below. But I still think the 4K footage coming from the Max Lens looks outstanding though. And one of my favorite ways of using a GoPro is when I ride my bike and I want to have that POV shot, which I think GoPro honestly does best. But we also have the Ace Pro with its 8K resolution, 8K sensor, AI chip, and all of that, 24 FPS in 8K, and I gotta be honest on this, since the release of this camera, I've never used 8K a single time. It's just to show you the examples in my review. But I'm really glad it's there though, because it allows me to use that 2x clarity zoom in 4K without losing any quality. But 8K itself is something I never use, mainly because the lack of frame rates, I would guess. If it had 30 FPS, maybe 60 FPS, you know, this camera would run out of battery pretty fast. But yeah, it's not something I use quite often. But the quality coming from this camera in places like the Maldives, especially when snorkeling and diving, is better than any other camera I've used. The accurate white balance in combination with the 4K 60 and the 2x clarity zoom allowed me to capture these amazing underwater shots that looked like I was closer than I actually were. So it's pretty amazing how this camera can pull off some pretty nice shots underwater. Now, as a motovlog camera, this was the first time that I actually used the Ace Pro when riding, and I was using the flat color profile to get even more dynamic range. And after some color grading, this looked really good and makes my decision even harder when it comes to choosing between these cameras, especially for motovlogging. So make sure to stay until the end to find out which I choose between all these cameras, if I can only choose one or two as my main ultimate travel setup. Now moving over to the Action 4, even though this is limited to 4K as its highest, so GoPro has higher, Ace Pro has higher, and like I mentioned with the Ace Pro, I never use 8K anyways, and the GoPro with the Max Lens Mode 2 can't even shoot 5.3K. So basically the same resolution is used on all these three cameras. And one of the things that makes the quality on the Action 4 so good is the D-Log-M 10-bit color profile. Even though we have 10-bit in the normal color profile as well, I think the normal colors needs a little bit of adjustments to make it look optimal. And at times the colors tint a little bit more towards the green side, which I don't really like. So if you want the optimal look from the normal color profile, you would need to do some correction in post anyway, in my opinion, and then it would be better to just go for the D-Log-M 10-bit anyway and use the free correction LUT from DJI, and you're almost done. So I will also leave a link to this conversion LUT down in the description below if you decide to pick it up, which is really helpful and it works with a lot of cameras actually. Now, the next one is the new X4, the latest 360 camera from Insta360, which has 8K resolution up to 30 FPS. But if you only have the X3 by now, what is the actual differences between 5.7K and 8K resolution when it comes to recording 360 videos? I do have a full comparison on this, which I'll leave down below as well, but the main difference is the final export quality. With the X3, you get a final export quality of close to 2K resolution in the center of the frame, but with the X4 you get closer to 3K, so you don't get that 8K looking videos. You're not gonna get that with the 360 camera, and this is because that 8K is spread over a 360-degree field of view compared to the Action 4, for example, which has 4K spread over 155 degrees. But with that said, I think the image quality coming from the X4 looks outstanding, and honestly, I think it can be compared to some of the straightforward cameras if you're doing it right. At the end, it all comes down to how you use, hold, mount, and frame the shots, and if you master these, your image quality will look much better than most others. So I have my cheat sheets for the Insta360 X3 and X4 down in the description below if you want to check those out. Those will help you along the way when you're out traveling, and you can print these and have a hard copy in your hand or just keep them on your phone. But we also have an OG 360 camera with a 1-inch sensor, the One RS 1-inch edition. This is more of that professional cinematic construction type of 360 camera, I would say, and not something that you would typically take on your family vacation, mainly because it's not waterproof, so you're limited to the activities that you can do with your kids. So that means, well, every land activity is good. And the lens is also huge, so it is extremely exposed, and if you crack this, yeah, you don't want to crack this. But the image quality is pretty impressive compared to new technology. This is old technology, so if you take this side by side with some newer technology, it's amazing how good this actually is. However, this seems to be discontinued now that we have the X4, so your only option is to get this off a local store, you know, a local online store in your area or through Amazon. Another One RS model here is also the One RS Twin Edition, which is now at 25% off actually, which is a pretty decent price for this camera. This will give you that 48 megapixel 4K boost lens, which I have on here right now, and it will also allow you to shoot in 4K and 6K widescreen, which I'm not really a huge fan of. But the image quality looks pretty good actually. However, the stabilization of this boost lens is not there. This, I assume, is because there is a bug in the latest firmware update for this, so this happened after I updated to the latest firmware. But hopefully this can get fixed pretty soon, because the quality of this actually looks pretty decent if we freeze the frame here. Now we also have the 360 lens here, which also looks decent. It's not as good as the 1-inch or the X3 or the X4, but in addition to the 360 videos, you also get that dedicated 4K single lens, which will give you a better image quality than if you use single lens mode on these other cameras. So that's also something to consider, and it's also on 25% off, which is, in my opinion, it's a killer price. You get a 360 camera and a single lens module camera. Yeah. Now another one is also the Go3. This one is fantastic. Now the resolution of this is not as high as the other cameras. This is capped to 2.7K at 30 FPS. However, I do think the image quality looks pretty amazing for what it is. And this is not a camera made to capture those high-end cinematic videos. It's a camera made to be fun and versatile, and it also has that magnetic backplate, so you can basically mount this on anything. So for short form content, for example, this is amazing. The quality is more than good enough after the compression coming from each of these platforms, and honestly, I think the quality is amazing. I even used this as my main travel camera back in Hawaii last year, and I'm still surprised when I watched this video back on my 65-inch TV. So yeah, I can honestly say that the Go3 is one of my most used travel cameras. Now we also have the X3, which is more or less the X4, but in a smaller body with less battery life, less features, and resolution. So I'm not going to dive too deep into this in today's video, but like I said earlier, I have a comparison between these two, this one and the X4, so I'll link that down in the description below. And the last one is the iPhone. This is not the latest iPhone. This is the iPhone 13 Pro Max, and I've also been using my wife's 14 Pro Max. The quality on something like this is amazing. If you buy third-party apps which can make your videos even better, but straight out of the camera, it's not really my thing. And maybe the latest model with the ProRes is the better option, but the reason I don't use an iPhone or a smartphone, and the reason I never will, is because it's a phone and not a travel camera. And that's my honest opinion. And all the additional costs you need in order to put this underwater, for example, to get amazing results is one thing, but to shoot comfortable, you would also need something like a gimbal, which also adds that extra stabilization. Maybe a phone case as well if you want to add some different lenses. And the phone itself is not really cheap, is it? So it's just an extra additional huge amount of cost all around, especially if you want to upgrade to the latest model every year to get the latest technology. You would need to buy the same accessories again and again because Apple makes the iPhones incompatible with the accessories that you already have, which is, you know, it sucks. It sucks that Apple has to do this every single year. So for me, it's just going to be way more expensive than just buying a new action camera every year, which can also film more. It has more features. It's waterproof. I wouldn't take this on jet ski, for example, or the paddleboard, or underwater, or to a tropical destination. Imagine shooting a video for 10 seconds and the screen dims down so you don't see anything, and 2 minutes later the iPhone has overheated. Yeah, that's why I'd never use an iPhone for anything. I feel like it's more preparation to get amazing results compared to a dedicated travel camera, or the Go3 for example, or you know, the Ace Pro. Now, one of the big questions, like every single year when there is a new camera released, low lights. Every single year there's so many questions about low lights because people want to shoot videos in low light. So, you know, here's a few comparison clips between all the different cameras in different scenarios, and you can decide for yourself which one you think look better. These clips are not going to be graded or adjusted or anything like that. This is straight out of the camera with the settings recommended by the company for low light shooting. Let's have a look. Now, when it comes to user experience with all these cameras, they are pretty much the same. You hit the record button and it records a video, and they all have a pretty easy way to change between horizontal and vertical aspects, for example, depending on which platform you want to upload to. So the Action 4 has the included cage, which allows you to mount this in a vertical and horizontal position, and the GoPro has that 8x7 aspect, which allows you to crop this in post if you want to do that, or you can actually change between vertical and horizontal in camera. Now, when it comes to the 360 cameras, you can do all these changes in the Insta360 Studio or mobile app, and the same thing goes for the Go3 and the Ace Pro. Pro, which has free frame. However, with the free frame on the Go3, it means you have to drop down to 1440p. So I do recommend mounting this in a vertical position instead, so you can keep that crisp 2.7K resolution. Now the Pocket 3 does also have vertical shooting mode, which you can enable by just flipping the screen to a vertical position like this. And this is limited to 3K resolution, but it looks fantastic. When it comes to vlogging, you can also triple tap on the joystick on the Pocket 3 to get into selfie mode, and with the other cameras, you have to mount them so they are facing you. So the process is more or less the same. You have to turn it around, and you can also triple tap on the joystick on the Pocket 3, so kind of same. However, with the 360 camera, you don't have to do that. You can adjust however you want later in the app, so you basically capture everything at once, and you don't really have to think about it when it comes to framing, which is a huge benefit with the 360 camera. Now, when it comes to menu navigation, it's easy to navigate through all these different settings on all cameras. However, the GoPro Hero 12 does have the least responsive screen overall. But this has been improved with the latest firmware update, so it's now a little bit better. But this has been an issue with the GoPro for a very long time, and it comes down to the GP2 processor, which is not improved for the GoPro Hero 12. Hopefully we see a new one in the GoPro Hero 13, but this is the main cause of the issues when it comes to navigating through the settings and everything on the GoPro, and the reason it freezes up at times. But a good thing with all these cameras is that all of them has that dedicated quick capture as well, which makes it much easier to stop and start recording by just tapping the shutter button, which is fantastic and something I see myself using more and more because it's more convenient, especially when you have all the settings dialed in pre-hand and you can just hit record. It starts record, and yeah, it's pretty straightforward. Now, one thing I don't like though is how I need to tear apart the 1RS 1-inch edition in order to take out the SD card. I'm not doing this as often. It's mainly when I transfer the files, but it seems very unnecessary given that the camera isn't even waterproof, so the SD card could have been placed in a more convenient spot if you ask me. When it comes to features, it seems like we get more features in these cameras every single year. Some are pretty much hyped up and some are actually good to have. Personally, I never use any of these features except for gesture control and voice control. So I mainly use the normal video mode on all these cameras. Well, for 360 camera, I use 360 videos. So GoPro is natural standard video and the 4 or 5.3K at 16:9. And with the 360 cameras, it's the highest resolution with the standard or flat color profile. And with the S Pro, it's usually free frame video in 4K resolution for the versatility with the flat color profile. And the Go3, I use the normal video mode with the flat color profile, so I get that 2.7K. And sometimes I also use slow motion with these cameras, but I mainly use 4K slow motion with the Pocket 3, but we also have that with the X4 now, which looks amazing. And with the Action 4, it's also normal video with a 4K resolution and all this in D-Log-M. And that's basically what I use every single time I use these cameras. I don't need more to capture what I want to capture. I also think just having more features adds to the confusion for a lot of people, and it also adds to the higher price of the camera. So even if you want to record just normal videos and you don't need all these features, you would still have to pay for those features. But of course, if you're the person that loves using loop record, pre-record, time capture, star trail, and all of that, these features are really good to have if you need them. Personally, for my use, it just adds additional buttons that I need to avoid pressing. I still think DJI is a little bit behind, even though I like how simple the Action 4 is, for example, and the Pocket 3. It would be nice to see DJI take the next step and get out of the comfort zone by adding something new, something different, something that we haven't seen in a DJI action camera before. Yeah. Now, when it comes to versatility, they all fit in your pockets and can be mounted in all different places. However, the Go3 has this magnetic back plates, and it has the smallest form factor, which allows it to be placed in all kinds of places without needing additional mounts or accessories. Now, the Pocket 3 is probably the least versatile camera because it has a mechanical gimbal, which is quite fragile, and it also has a limit to how far it can tilt before the gimbal, stops, which means this is the only camera without horizon lock. But you also have to understand that this is not an action camera, but more of that cinematic pocket camera. But of course, we do have accessories which helps you mount the Pocket 3 in all different places as well. So here I have it mounted to my chest harness, for example, when I'm out riding, and I must say that I was pretty impressed with how this turned out. Now, as for the remaining cameras here, they can all be mounted in the same ways, either by using the Gopro feet or the quad range thread on the bottom. Now, one advantage with the One RS Twin Edition though is the changeable lenses. So you can decide which lens you want to use for the different scenarios, and since this is a modular design, you can also flip the screen the other way in order to see yourself when you're vlogging, which is pretty convenient. And when it comes to actual real-life use of all these cameras here, there's not a huge difference in use. However, the Pocket 3 has that mechanical gimbal, and I found myself adjusting this a little bit more back and forth and up and down compared to any of these other cameras which has that electronic image stabilization built in. So that is one of the things that I've seen myself using a lot of, or doing a lot of, when I record with the Pocket 3. It's not a big con, not a con at all, it's just how it works. But the actual differences and the things that separates these cameras when it comes to versatility is definitely the 360 videos. And for some, the quality differences between the 360 videos coming from these cameras and a regular action camera or the Pocket 3, for example, is huge, and the reason to go one way over the other, which is completely fine because it's your decision to make, and others, they don't find the differences to be that big. But as of versatility, nothing can ever be a 360 camera because it records everything without having to do anything, and this in combination with the invisible selfie stick makes this the most versatile camera on the market. And not to mention that these 360 cameras does also have that single lens mode which shoots 4K videos, so you can basically use it as a regular action camera if you just want to record some regular action camera videos, for example. So you basically get two cameras for the price of one. But there is a con here though, and this con is huge for some, and for others it doesn't, it's not a con at all. But there's no ND filters for these 360 cameras, and that is something I definitely wish we had for the X4. And this is where I also think the Pocket 3 takes the lead, especially with how easy it is to use the magnetic filters, and now we even have some wide angle macro ND filters from Freewell, which is just wow. So ND filters is something I miss when I use a 360 camera, and I mean, it should be easily doable since we already have the standard and premium lens guards. Just add some colors to the premium lens guard and sell it. It would be perfect when you need it. So let me know your thoughts on that. Should we request some ND filters for the X4? Let me know in the comments below. Now, when it comes to durability and build quality, this is what matters to a lot of people, since these are all action cameras in some form except for the Pocket 3, and will therefore be used in some sort of action scenarios, even though the most common way of using an action camera nowadays is for vlogging or traveling. From my experience, they've all held up pretty well. Some of them have a few marks here and there, but nothing special. And I will also say that the GoPro 12, Action 4 and the Ace Pro, maybe the Go3, are the most durable and robust action cameras. But of course, the GoPro and the Ace Pro and the Action 4 can definitely take the hardest hits. Even though the X4 and the premium lens guard could take a really hard beating without being completely destroyed. And it actually took me 9 direct hits from my 35 miles per hour RC car to actually crack the premium lens guard, so durability here is pretty impressive. But what makes the real difference here is that we do have these changeable lens guards on the Action 4, the Go3, the GoPro 12 and also the Ace Pro, which means that once you crack it, you can always buy a new one for a very small amount. And if you also add a screen protector to the backside, maybe the front as well, on those that has this front screen, you're pretty much covered in all situations. And the Pocket 3 is probably the one that has the best look to it and the most premium feel, but it's overall the least durable camera. And yeah, I know it's not an action camera, but if I didn't include this in this video, you would probably ask for it anyway. So I guess you can look at this as more of a image quality comparison, because you can't use this in the same way as you can use these cameras. Now, the One RS 1-inch, however, is as premium as it gets. This really feels solid, and it feels expensive. It is expensive, but it's also just as fragile as the Pocket 3, maybe a touch more, because there's no lens guards to it that you can have. So if you crack this, you might as well, you know, buy a new camera, because replacing this lens is not going to be cheap. And as an addition to the Pocket 3, you can always use a lower ND filter if you're not recording on a sunny day to help that protect the lens, which is a huge benefit. And then we have the One RS Twin Edition, which is quite similar to the GoPro Ace Pro and the Action 4, but with a modular design, which makes it easy to change between a 360 video and the standard action camera video look with the boost lens. The quality does not feel as premium though, but the overall durability is really good. And because it's a modular design, you don't have to replace the whole camera if something breaks, which makes it a little bit easier on the wallet. Now, when it comes to battery life, this has always been the question mark when it comes to these cameras, and we all want as much battery life as possible, and even that is not enough. And the short answer is that all these cameras can record for at least 1 hour straight, even the X4 in 8K resolution. And over the past years, I've been doing a lot of side-by-side comparison when it comes to battery record time and all of that here in the studio, and all cameras have been recorded for at least 80 to 90 minutes in a 25 degrees Celsius environment, which I have here in the studio. But as soon as you take the camera out, the environment will change. So if you put this on your motorcycle, none of these will overheat because it has airflow. And the same thing goes for hiking in moderate winds. None of them is gonna overheat. And the same thing goes with time-lapse, for example, because time-lapse is something different than shooting a normal video, so it won't overheat. But if you do a normal video standing still, which most people won't do for a longer period of time, I guess, it might have a higher chance of overheating if there's no airflow cooling the camera. But an easy way to fix this is to get a portable fan, for example, or you can either put the camera in the shades and use something you have on you, like your hat, for example, to create a shade for the camera, which is completely free. But out of all these cameras, I've had the GoPro Hero 12 and the One RS 1-inch edition overheat more than 5 times when I've been out traveling over the past year. And the reason could be simple, as both of these cameras are running with old technology. The heat dissipation is worse than the newer cameras, and even the GoPro runs with an older GP2 processor. So this could also be the reason for all the bugs and issues that people are reporting. But at the end, the Go3 128GB version is the one with the longest record time, followed by the Action 4, Ace Pro, the X4, the X3, GoPro 12, Pocket 3, the One RS Twin Edition, and the last one is the One RS 1-inch edition. But this can also vary from test to test. My point is that you will be able to record whatever you need with any of these cameras, and you can also grab a few extra batteries in that case. Now, when it comes to software and app use, Insta360 is definitely leading in this area with the most intuitive app both on mobile and desktop. DJI and GoPro works fine, but not something I can see myself using in the future as a replacement for Final Cut, even when I'm doing short-form content. With the Insta360 mobile app, you can edit your videos manually, use AI, or different shot labs features to create different effects, which is pretty cool if you just want something fast, simple for your social media. So we're now at the point where I have to choose between 1 or 2 cameras as my main travel setup. Unfortunately though, I have to choose 3 because I can't decide, you know, I can't pick 1 or I can't pick 2 because they have all different use cases and I use them in 3 different ways. So the first one is obviously going to be the Pocket 3 because the main reason is that this will replace my Sony a7S III when I'm out traveling, which means that I can travel lighter because I don't have to bring 2 additional lenses for whatever I want to film. And I think the Pocket 3 does just as well when I'm out there anyway, so I feel like this is the end of my Sony a7S III traveling times. The Pocket 3 is also compatible with the DJI Mic 2, of course, because that came with the Pocket 3, and this is my main choice of audio when I'm out and about and doing, whatever. And it also fits in my pocket, so I can easily just pick it up and start recording whenever I want without dealing with manual settings to have the best looking image. The next one up is of course going to be the X4. The X3 was my most used action camera over the past 2 years, so it kind of makes sense to replace replace this with the X4, which has a higher resolution and better looking image after the final export through the Studio app. It's not by much though, but it is noticeable, especially when I'm using me mode. The X4 does also allow me to capture everything and more, so I don't really have to pay attention to anything. So it's basically a lazy way of capturing the world, even though the reframing process is a bit longer than what you have with the GoPro, for example, where you just drop the files and you're done. And the X4, or a 360 camera in general, offers much more flexibility and versatility compared to any other camera on the market, and is what I consider the perfect travel camera because it records everything. It makes it so much easier. The next one and the last one, you probably guessed it, maybe, is gonna be the Go3. This is basically filling the empty spots, I would say, the spots where I want to record a video, but I don't want to hold the camera or have a heavy brick dingling around on my chest or, you know, on my neck mount. So because of the low weight, it's much more comfortable and easier to wear and just hit record whenever I want to capture something than any other camera, and this has been my go-to for hiking. And if you've been here for a while, you probably know that I love doing these hikes when I'm out traveling, and there's no better camera in my opinion to use than the Go3 when I climb mountains and, you know, do things with the kids when we're out on vacation. So that's the main reason I love the Go3, and this is my third choice of travel camera. So there you have my comparison between all these DJI, GoPro and Insta360 cameras based on my personal use and experience, and I really hope that I could help you in making the right decision based on your needs when it comes to selecting between these cameras. And also remember that if you're not on a limited budget, maybe you have $1,000 to spare, there's nothing wrong in buying two. I'm also curious to know your thoughts and which action cameras are your favorites. Is it a 360 camera? Is it the Pocket 3? Even though this is not an action camera, is it the Pocket 3? Let me know in the comments below. And also don't forget to drop a like so this video can reach more people that are looking to buy a new action camera, and also hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on the next video. So that's a wrap. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.